Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Luke here again, and today's episode is going to be a little bit of a shorter one. It's going to be a bit more basic, I suppose. It's going to be about how the Overledger approach to interoperability differs in a functional sense compared to other approaches in the space, right? And most interoperability approaches, things like Overledger, Aon, etc., they introduce middleware blockchain solutions. And in this video, I'm going to explain that and draw it very simply. It's not going to be a technical video, so don't worry. If you're not technically minded, I'm not very technically minded. This is going to be a great video just to sort of outline how it works in a functional sense, why it matters, and how it kind of looks like in a real world kind of example, right? And so I'm going to link a couple of resources at the start that'll help you get a good overview if you don't understand much, including the white paper, which is very detailed and thorough. So if you are technical, please feel free to check it out. Anyway, the first article here we've got from Sec, and he actually does a great overview of Overledger and what it is. And if you're new to the channel, Overledger is a layer above networks that helps people to create decentralized applications that utilize the benefits and innovations of all of the underlying networks at one time. And so Sec actually also touches on how Overledger differs, and it goes into a bit more detail than I'm going to in here, and it talks about some of the limitations, right? Gilbert also touches on the same thing. About a year ago, he wrote a similar article. Here we go, a couple of the things here. These interoperability blockchain technologies are grouped together because in their delivery, they introduce additional complexity, overhead, and technical risk by either, right? And so that's kind of why the Overledger solution is more tilted towards adoption and functional, in a sense that it's easier and more flexible for developers and enterprises to utilize, right? And they introduce risk by one of these things, introducing another blockchain on top of existing blockchains, which I'll demonstrate in a minute, adding additional consensus mechanisms, imposing limitations to connect chain to chain, and mandating a fundamental change to an enterprise's system, right? So if you wanted to get a little bit more detail, I recommend you read the white paper. Not only does it have a great comparison for every single part, Interoledger, Polkadot, Cosmos, it has it all, every single aspect. It also goes into the layers of Overledger and how it works. But today, I wanted to do something that is a bit easier for people to understand, right? And to do that, I thought I would kind of draw it out. And bear with me, you're probably looking at me thinking, man, this man is psycho. But hear me out. Today, I've drawn 3 racetracks with horses on them, right? And each racetrack, as you can see, is isolated. There's no way for these horses to get to the other racetracks without a bridge, okay? Without something to communicate that, okay? And so these horses run in isolation. And so let's assume this is Ethereum here, and let's assume this is Fabric, Hyperledger Fabric over here, right? And let's assume, again, that this is data. So each horse is a data. Oh, can I get some, 1, 2, 3. Some data. Maybe this is A, B, C, right? And so what people want to do when they use blockchain is they want to be able to communicate, this order of data and this order of data together easily so that they can build applications that read and write to both chains, right? But as I mentioned, these racetracks, as you can see, they're in isolation. There's no bridge here. There's nothing here to connect them. Okay, and so the problem here is very clear, okay? So now I'm going to introduce the most typical solution in the space, and that is this. Okay, and now this is an interoperability blockchain. I will write this up here. Okay, interoperability blockchain. Right? Okay, so what does this mean? It means that for an enterprise or a developer or something to use multi-chain applications, they have to lock themselves into this vendor or this interoperability blockchain, right? And it sources the information from here and writes a record of it up here, right? In this horse. This horse is a record of what happened here, and this horse is a record of what happened here, right? And so the interoperability blockchain is like a ledger of what's going on here and here, and that allows people who are building on it to write and read and write apps that are multi-chain, right? Now thinking, why is that such a bad idea? Here's why. It means that developers have to lock themselves into this blockchain. It also takes much longer and is more costly because this blockchain also has its own consensus, okay? Which means if something happens on here, it has to go through consensus, reach consensus on this blockchain before it's verified, okay? And now what if this blockchain has a limitation? For example, it can only do 1,000 transactions per second, but you've connected Red Belly over here that can do 400,000 transactions per second. You see this blockchain suddenly becomes almost like a bottleneck in the network, okay? And so I hope you can understand that's the process people are kind of going for, okay? And this blockchain, this solution doesn't really provide you flexibility. If anything, it just locks you in again into a very limited solution. Now I'm going to go over here to the Overledger solution and I'm going to show you how it differs, okay? And so once again, you've got a blockchain here, 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 and here, right? Each racetrack is its own network that currently works in isolation, okay? And there's no network, there's no bridge between them, okay? So we know the problem. So instead of adding another interoperability blockchain like we did earlier, think of you're at the horse races, right? And when you're at the horse races, you sit in the stands. So picture this rectangle here as the stands, the viewing platform. As you can see, if you're a developer on Overledger, you've got binoculars, okay? And what do binoculars allow you to do? They allow you to read and write on every single racetrack all at the same time because it gives you optics onto all 4 chains all at the same time, okay? Now it also allows you to build applications that in the future, if let's say another horse track was to come along, you can, as you've got binoculars, if you build a connector, which takes, is going to be very quick, it's going to be an easy process, and I'll talk about the connector in another video. I think I'm going to call it like a sandbox environment or something, but you can easily read and write to this one now because you've got global optics. You're not another racetrack that's got to build a bridge, right? It doesn't matter. You can see everything. You can see and read and write to everything, okay? And now this is beneficial because it provides flexibility and it provides Overledger with agnostic access. If you wanted to develop a multi-chain application, you don't want to be locked in. You want to have flexibility to see everything and read and write to everything all at the same time. And further on from that, Overledger also has outside sourcing, right? And so if we imagine this is the center of the stadium with all the horse tracks in it, and this is the stand, right? To get external information from outside the stand into the racetracks, they would have to build in connections into each racetrack. Whereas Overledger has Oracle functionality, right? And that allows, see if I can draw, that allows data to be sourced externally and plugged directly into the applications which are built in the stand, right? And because Overledger applications are built in the stand, the binoculars again have agnostic optics on everything going on. So I hope that kind of breaks it down in a bit more of a functional sense where it sits and why it matters. To elaborate on this, I wanted to pull up this image because I think it kind of represents this whole industry and ecosystem in a bit more of a, I don't know, maybe a bit more of an easier way. So picture this, as you can see here, these lines and stuff is a satellite network around the Earth, okay? And now let's picture Earth, and every country or region in the Earth or city is another network or a blockchain, right? Like Fabric, Ethereum, Corda, Elastos, something like that, right? Currently, to communicate between these regions, you got to go through long, lengthy bus rides, got to go through traffic, highways, planes, boats. You got to communicate via longer, lengthy processes, okay? That's how you bridge the regions, okay? Or more importantly, people are trying to become maximalists for their network. So they're trying to get everyone to build on their one region. That's silly, and that's silly for this reason. Why couldn't you simply, if you want to build an application, be wherever you are in the world, okay? Because this satellite network, it's global. Wherever you are on this landscape, ping one of these nodes above, right? And what is this? This is Overledger, okay? And as you can see, Overledger is a wrapped or warped network that sits across all regions and cities and countries, or it sits above all networks, protocols, and innovations, okay? And so if you want to build an application, you can see what's going on in every single other isolated network instantaneously by connecting to the layer that sits above. And that is this satellite layer that I've outlined here. Okay, and so this actually enables a whole nother thing that I'd love to get into now. It's called a sandbox environment. and I want to talk about connector FOMO. But I think I'm going to leave that for another video, because I just wanted to be a short and sharp one today about the functional differences between the approaches, okay? So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please let me know in the comments. If you are more technically minded, please do have a look through some of these articles that I'm linking. They go into way more detail, but I just thought a lot of people in this space, they don't really understand, or they don't care too much about the intricacies, right? Like you don't really care how your phone works on a microchip level, do you? You want to know what it means to you and how it works in a functional sense. And so I thought if I could do that in an easy to understand way, a bit like this graphic here, really, I thought, that might be beneficial to someone at least. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Yeah, take care. Thank you.